So hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you for attending our webinar today on how to become a Top Gun troubleshooter through simulation. Before we get into the presentation itself, just a few housekeeping items, which I'm sure most of you BrightTalk members will be familiar with. You can ask questions throughout the webinar through the BrightTalk platform, and we will try to answer as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. If your question does not get answered, we will try to get back to you after the session. To do this, to raise your question, submit it through the button that's located at the top left-hand side of the screen. Also, we want to know if you found the information valuable, so at the end, please take a moment to rate the session by clicking on the Rate This button on the right-hand side of the player. And finally, a recorded version of this presentation will be available immediately following its conclusion. So with that out of the way, let me introduce the presenters for today's session to you. Emel, Firtina. Emel, you want to say hi real quick?
Hello, everybody. This is Emel.
Hello, Emel. And myself, Christoph Goldenstern. So just so you know who we are, Emel is a senior consultant at Kepner-Tregoe. She has many years of experience working with manufacturing clients and organizations really across the world in the mining, oil and gas, and information technology sectors, amongst others. And I'm the VP of Service Excellence here at Kepner-Tregoe. For almost 20 years, I've been working with organizations across the globe, mostly in the areas of strategy, service, and support. So thank you for spending this next 30 minutes or so with us, and let's get into it. Now, we thought about doing this webinar live right within the simulation platform, but frankly, we wanted to avoid technology glitches with respect to internet connectivity, delays via the BrightTalk platform, etc., especially since we have over 800 people registered for the webinar. And therefore, we will show you the solution via a number of screenshots. That said, we are happy to provide you an individual live demo of the platform should you be interested after the webinar. So, the KT troubleshooting simulation is ultimately about practicing your KT troubleshooting skills in an engaging environment under simulated pressure to make you proficient more quickly. And just to be clear, this webinar will not cover the KT methodology itself, but rather talk about how the methodology and high-quality troubleshooting in general can be practiced and reinforced to gain proficiency faster via simulation. Let me just pause there real quick. I'm seeing some messages that the volume is fairly low from a few people. We'll see if we can adjust that. Speak a little louder. All right. We will try to speak up. I feel like I'm speaking pretty loudly already into my microphone, but I will try to speak a little louder. This seems to be coming through the BrightTalk platform. So I hope this is a little better. So why did we venture into the simulation space? Well, the KT methods have been a de facto standard for troubleshooting excellence for decades, be it in manufacturing, IT service management, customer support, operations, life science, or any other industry really facing technical challenges that require a structured approach to solve them and ultimately document the outcomes. With respect to troubleshooting and root cause analysis, what you see here are some of the core concepts that we are teaching in the classroom to get from an initial situation to root cause and eventually to the solution. In our training approach, and if you have been to our trainings, you will know this, we've always emphasized the importance of practical application of the processes to bridge the gap between the classroom and the real life of the workplace. However, there are limitations to what can be done in a traditional classroom setting. And that is why, in collaboration with a business partner, we have introduced the KT Troubleshooting Simulation, a means to quickly apply the new skills in a controlled environment through quick iterations and feedback. The result is ultimately greater confidence in a shorter time and a greater capability to apply those skills to real-life issues. And I'm seeing a couple of messages that the volume appears to be better now, so we're going to try to keep this up best we can. Thanks for that feedback. So what I'd like to do with you now real quick is just walk you through the learning approach in a bit more detail, because it's ultimately all about the learner. First of all, individuals learn the concepts in a KT workshop, of course. Then after the classroom portion, the learners move to the simulation stage. This can be immediately following the workshop, or weeks after the workshop, or even as a refresher perhaps much later on. Within the simulation, the learners are given various scenarios, and within these scenarios, a slew of information, and they need to use their troubleshooting skills to vet through that information, the data sources, to get to the most relevant data and to the next steps, of course. In order to build that critical thinking muscle memory, if you want, the simulation is specifically designed to have short learning sprints with various check-ins and repetitions. Learners work on a scenario in small groups and get that hands-on practice. And before they can progress to the next step, they must check in with a KT instructor to show their work, explain their thinking, and also receive feedback and coaching if and when required. Then, once the scenario is completed, using situation appraisal and problem analysis, there's a group debrief before the next scenario starts. And then over time, these scenarios become more and more complex. So with this as a bit of a backdrop on the overall learning approach, before we get a little bit more into the technical features, here's a question for the audience that we would like to get your view on, and we'll give you about 60 seconds to respond to this. So I'm launching the poll now, and hopefully it will show up on your screen here in a few seconds. And so you can see the question is, what role do you expect simulations to play in your company's future learning strategies? So we're seeing the votes come in. We'll have about 20 more seconds. About 10 more seconds. All right, and we'll stop the vote here. And hopefully you will see the result there on your screen in a second. So we can see, looking at those results, that organizations are still somewhat in different places. We can actually see here from the numbers that many organizations, many people are already thinking about simulation as part of their learning strategy. We're seeing here 33% are saying somewhat important and 13% a significant role, so that's a total of 46%. But we can also see for some of the others, it's not really clear yet, or the concept of simulation is still fairly new when we look at the balance here of about 52%. So what we hope to do here now is to show you how powerful this concept of simulation can be in the context of troubleshooting. And with that, I will now hand it over to Emel, who will talk you through some of the technical features of the troubleshooting simulation. Emel?
Okay, hello everybody. This is Emel, Firtina. Before we actually launch into the technical features and the workflow of the simulation, I just want to share some pictures, like a few action shots of people who have been in our simulation sessions. And as you see, participants work in groups fully engaged, and some kind of, curious at the same time. So there's a lot of interaction, collecting and analyzing of data from different sources. But here, our main actually character is a robot called EV3, and that performs actually certain business processes that also tends to have problems which we need to solve during the simulation session. So now let's talk about technical requirements and the details of what we will be seeing during the simulation. So there are only two things you need, actually not many, just two, in order to be ready for the KT troubleshooting simulation. An up-to-date browser like Chrome, Firefox, or Internet Explorer, and Internet access. That's simple, nothing complicated. But no software installation is required, so you don't need to worry about your IT department around that. And we provide a connectivity test function to make sure you are ready to go. After saying this, let's actually have a look on how a learner will benefit from our new KT troubleshooting simulation product line. So the first thing is first, of course, for each group, dedicated login credentials are provided, and which will allow you guys for access to one of the many possible learning configurations. And the one thing is about these configurations are this can be standard or custom built. So if you want to look at what they look like, here's an example of a one-day format actually representing the different scenario types, such as discovery case. Discovery scenario is one of them. Single position, multi-position, and even escalation scenarios, which really emphasize the importance of documentation between groups working on the same issues. Red areas on this actually introduction page they represent application scenarios, only separated by some actually short theory sections, in case just in case they are appropriate for refresher sessions. Basically, we recap what we did after the scenario and maybe refresh our memories depending on when you have gone through the training before we move on to the next scenario. And customized enterprise versions is another versions we have. They are available for KT customers with larger implementation projects. Let's answer one question. What does each scenario look like? So if you look at your screens, actually you see the first thing you see is different information sources and in what we call the media library. Information is provided actually in variety of formats, and I will show you some examples of those in just a second. But as we know and we mentioned before, we live in the digital age. So people want to get all of the information they can get, but not every one of them is necessary or needed to resolve our issues. So the simulation, by saying that the simulation confronts learners with a variety of information sources, all available at the same time or changing over time based on the progress. The key is, so what is the key thing up here? The key thing is ask the right questions and identifying the information source most likely to be useful. So there are elements of reality built into the simulation, as you will see in a minute, and also groups are faced with the element of time pressure. Like we never have time limits, right? Nobody forces us like, okay, you should have done this like now. So they will need to, they will need to be agile with their usual process and understand how much data they need to make meaningful progress actually. So we always hear, how much process should I use? And the answer is as much as you have to. And simulation helps to reinforce that and practice it. So now it is time to get to know different available information sources. And the first thing we see in the media library is called situation. And here, actually, we hear and Mrs. White and see the initial issue, which should be clarified. It basically tells us what is the pain they are experiencing right now that needs to be addressed. And then we actually, to start things off, one of the animations here explains the robot configuration, how it works, parts list, wiring diagrams, all the details of how this robot works. And the second one illustrates how the robot performs in certain business process, because we have different business processes that we use to practice, and some of them are like sorting, transition, and the loading. We just want to make sure in the session everybody is really familiar and comfortable of what the business process we are talking right now. So after we have a really good understanding of how things works, next two videos are about should performance and the actual performance of the robot. And here, the key thing is the careful observation and paying attention to the details, because it plays an important role when looking for symptoms and assessing the situation. You might have experienced yourself, people reporting an undesired condition of a machine or service tend to use generalized statements like, oh, performance is slow, software doesn't work, or machine is not working, or another, my favorite one is machine is slow. So I'm sure you have heard any of this sometime in your lifetime, and it's not something new to you. But statements like this can lead to actions based on incomplete understanding of the situation at hand. So situation awareness and the accurate description of what is observed is vital for success. This is what we are reinforcing throughout the simulation. So after we actually understand all this, next information source is actually the log files. And the log files reports are all around us, making it too far easy for individuals to start fishing for ideas and checking, such as like checking assumptions, creating possible causes, and all other ideas they can come up with. When doing so, without a good problem description, we are most likely to get lost in the weeds. And the simulation provides clear examples on how to use this information to our advantage. Knowing what to look for is essential to quality troubleshooting and what happens to those not paying attention to facts. So another information source we have available is called maintenance and repair history. And this is where people have so much fun, because this information source is basically activities performed in the past will provide learners with ideas around possible causes or a red herring here and there. Again, the behavior we are reinforcing here is to sift through all this information with an understanding of what could be relevant and what is not, based on the information we have gathered. And after getting all this data around the issue, the next thing, the final stage of each scenario actually require the groups to agree on appropriate actions, either to get to the cause and or restore the performance again. So there's a large variety of different actions available, classified as visual checks to confirm assumptions, or the corrective actions to resolve the issue being worked on. So I don't know if you have been through the KT workshops, but one of the steps for the KT process is testing possible cause or the causes through what we call destructive testing. So destructive testing of multiple causes, and then identifying the corrective actions that can be confirmed before taking them. So the goal up here is to drive an increased first-time fix culture. So we don't want to actually try and do things unless we have a reason, but we really want to actually have first-time fix and make a good decision about what it would be. And the simulation is designed to support this thinking. So then, but when we take actions, so if we look at the next slide, when we take action, here's an actual example of what we can call unnecessary action. So there is an immediate system feedback on an action chosen by a group member. So if you are successful, there will be a green check mark. If it is not, then, after we take action, sometimes we have consequences, and this is what you actually see right away. The idea is over here is to build confidence by making mistakes in the safe to fail environment of the simulation. And of course, learn from them for the next scenario while moving our people up to the learning curve. So now we share and learn from our work is captured at dashboards. And the dashboards basically probably the most innovative function in the K2 troubleshooting simulation. And because it is giving us the ability to show how the groups came to the solution. So these dashboards can be used to reflect on how groups have performed during the discovery exercise, or they can be used to reflect on how group has come to the solution. And it also helps us to show trending performance data in sessions with multiple scenarios, and also provide a real-time overview of activities and the progress for instructors during the scenarios. So based on my experiences with groups, seeing dashboard data was really eye-opening for them. It really helps the groups and the individuals to recognize the importance of good decision-making around actions and also understand the consequences. So at the end of the session, no individual data is stored. So whatever the group sees in the dashboard will not be there forever. So there will be, we don't store them. And also the use of dashboards can be turned on or off based on an organization's preference. So I might be, kind of going too fast, but we will be taking your questions later on. But after saying and covering all the technical side of the simulation, now I'm going to turn it to Christoph, and he's going to share some examples with you from the real life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emel. Much appreciated. Thanks for that walkthrough. It seems like we have the volume issues figured out. So I actually got a message from our BrightTalk support engineer that apparently the BrightTalk volume was set at the lowest level, and they have increased that. So hopefully you can hear us okay now, and have heard us. Emel has been coming through clearly, loud and clearly the last 10 minutes or so. Before we, in fact, open up for questions, we want to share a client example with you. In this particular case, we were working with a major telecom company across Europe and India, helping them to improve some of their critical IT service management processes for some of their critical service applications. You can see on the slide here the major deliverables on the, with respect to the project on the right. And the simulation was a major component in getting to proficiency faster and drive adoption, which you can see reflected in the results that were achieved almost instantaneously. We also eventually helped them to develop their own in-house trainers for this solution. Overall, this client of ours ended up exceeding its improvement target by more than 300%, delivering a 64% reduction in mean time to resolution after about 9 months. So this is just one example of what clients have achieved adopting this solution. For example, as part of a bigger engagement to improve their processes and their skill sets. So this concludes the formal part of our demonstration. We do have a few minutes left until we come up on 30 minutes. So let's take a few questions from the audience. So here's an interesting one. How would KT recommend to use the simulation as part of a larger skill development strategy? So let me take this one. We're seeing really, I guess, three main use cases for the simulation. First of all, as an add-on to the actual troubleshooting training to practice your skills in, as we mentioned a couple of times throughout the demo, in a safe-to-fail environment, and to build confidence before we drop people back into the workplace where they have to perform under pressure. Secondly, we think this can serve very well as a refresher to well refresh and practice your Kepner-Tregoe troubleshooting skills, especially if it has been a while since you have used them in practice. And thirdly, it can also be a platform for continued skill improvement of your people's problem-solving skills if and when you need it. So to that end, just like with every other KT solution, we actually offer a train the facilitator training and an enterprise license version that allows you to run your own simulations in-house, which also can be coupled with customized outlines for particular simulation days, and also to reinforce very specific behaviors that you want to reinforce in your problem-solving environment. Okay, here's the second question. Emel, maybe that you want to take this one on.
Yes, I will take that.
How can simulation be purchased?
Okay, it's mine. There are two actually fundamental ways for how to purchase a simulation. And this is kind of, somewhat similar to pay TV. So the first way, first way is we had a day rate option where you can actually purchase any number of days in the simulator. You can either use KT Facilitator or you can actually your own because we actually have train-the-trainer programs for this simulation session as well. And the second way is actually we have an enterprise license option. This actually allows you to run as many people as you want through the simulation over a certain time frame. So these are the two ways to purchase the simulation.
Thanks, Emel. So here's another one. Can the simulation be conducted virtually? So good question. So while the actual simulation is run in the cloud, we're still working on how to best run virtual sessions using the simulation. A key thing that we have to consider there is how to manage the group scenarios that require people to interact with each other. And this is something we're currently working on and hope to have available next year. So I'm looking at some of the other questions here. We still have 1 or 2 minutes. One of this question might be related to the question I just answered. Is the simulation training hosted at a KT site or at the client site? Well, the simulation itself is hosted in the cloud, but the training can be run, the physical training can be run both at your venue, at the client site in-house, or also at KT. We actually have open enrollment programs for organizations that may just have 1 or 2 people or a small number of people that they want to run through the simulation. So both are possible. Let's try another one here. How would using simulation in between training and real-life application be beneficial for individuals? Emel, I'm happy to take that on, or do you want to take that on?
Sure, go ahead. I'll chip in.
Yeah, okay. So I think we try to emphasize this a little bit throughout the simulation. We believe that the simulation can be a real accelerator of skill. So, people still need to learn the concept of good quality troubleshooting, but oftentimes the challenge is that then right after the training, and even though they might have run through some case studies, we drop people right back into the workplace where they have to perform under high pressure. So they didn't really have the chance to practice these skills in an environment that is closer to the reality, that simulates some of that pressure and also simulates all the different information sources that are available. And that's exactly what the simulation does. So the simulation is really an adoption driver. It's a confidence builder and a way to build that capability more quickly and therefore also get to results more quickly, as you've seen in that example that I showed you earlier with that telecom client. So maybe a last one here. I'll take off. We have some very experienced troubleshooters in our organization. Would they also see this as valuable from your experience? Yeah, absolutely. In fact,
yes.
When we started piloting this this solution, and Emel, you've had some first-hand experience
yes.
on that from a very particular client. So I'll let you complete this answer in a second. But the simulation has been used and applied with both clients that are just about to embark on an improvement initiative and improving their problem-solving skills, but also with clients who are also already very mature. And Emel, I'll let you tell what their experience has been.
Actually, to your point, Christoph, like both sides love the simulation and they find it really helpful because, first of all, it was a really good refresher for them, for some of them, and also, as we said, like, you just basically learn, you use it, but this environment is different, especially when it comes to using the right, enough information to get to the right amount of progress. So they just love seeing it. They just, and this was really interactive activities, and this really offered them a different format than the classroom. So both sides, either mature application or the new clients, they all like it so much, very much.
Okay, very good. Let's do one more here before we close things out. Does simulation mean the concept of documenting while working on a case is no longer encouraged? No, actually, it's quite the opposite.
No.
So, documentation is absolutely critical, obviously, to have an audit trail, but also to enable collaboration, handover, and escalation. There are scenarios within the simulation specifically designed to reinforce that behavior and to train documentation and handover. There is for example, there's a custom application of the simulation that is available that we call swap cases, where teams in parallel are working on different scenarios to a certain point. For example, developing a problem specification, as we call it, and then hand it over to another team to advance the problem solving from there. So they swap the cases. So we are actually looking to reinforce the importance and the need for good quality documentation as an output of good problem solving. Okay. We are here at 33 minutes after the hour since we started, and we had broadly allotted about 30 minutes for this. So we're going to wrap this things up here. We do hope this provides you with some new insights into the power of simulation. Again, as mentioned at the outset, we're interested to know if you found this session valuable. So please do go and rate this session. Also, feel free to reach out to us with any additional questions or thoughts you might have. And if you're interested in a live demo or additional information, please do reach out to us at webinquirer@Kepner-Tregoe.com. So with that, thank you again for your time here today, and we wish you a great rest of your day or evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.